Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us for this three-part series for discussing managing supplier diversity and really building a coordinated approach between those two operations. I'm Ken McDonald, founder of Source SCM Consulting, 30 years of sourcing and supply chain experience. And with me, I have three esteemed colleagues. Dana, would you introduce yourself, please?
Sure. Hi, I'm Dana Small. I work at BioMarin. I work in global strategic sourcing for the past 10 years and finance 15, mainly supporting global commercial function.
Thank you. Darren?
Hello, everyone. I'm Darren Harmon. I lead the Enterprise Supplier Diversity and Sustainable Procurement programs.
And Mark?
Yeah, thanks, Ken. So my name is Mark Teedens. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Noosh. Noosh is a marketing production and execution software company involved in sustainability as well as supplier diversity in helping marketers buy better.
The focus of the kind of webinar series is really looking and exploring supplier diversity and the role played in marketing execution, kind of opportunities to expand the utilization of diverse suppliers and really create that competitive advantage. We'll talk about topics like, provide you an overview of supplier diversity, what it looks like today, some of the challenges that some of the marketing execution companies are facing, and then how do we drive awareness and adoption of those available suppliers in that diverse space. And really, how do we optimize the supplier diversity program? We think about reporting, growth, technology, really driving a value proposition. Next slide, Mark. So the first topic we'll focus on is really providing an overview and giving you some definitions of what supplier diversity looks like today and some of the complexities and challenges that the marketing execution teams are facing. As we get into this, when we look at key drivers for supplier diversity, we think of corporate culture, social responsibility, corporate diversity goals, where you think of client or regulated, driven by regulation. When we look at defining the size and scope, there's 11 million minority businesses out there today, almost $2 trillion in annual revenue, and 6.3 million people are employed by diverse suppliers. So we start to look at the expanse of that and knowing that it's ever growing as we move forward, especially in today's complex business challenges. Dana, what are some of the key drivers that you see at BioMarin that kind of fuel your supplier diversity program?
Yeah, I think from a pharmaceutical standpoint of view, we are 100% required by the government to actually have goals and to report out on supplier diversity. Because we sell to the VA, they have contracts with us and we have contracts back with them that force us, well, not force us, but require us to do a small percentage or a certain percentage with small suppliers and maintain a diverse percentage throughout our entire supply chain. And those goals really, I apologize, my two-year-old just walked in and literally distracted, like made me lose my chain of thought. Coco, can you go sit down, please? Sorry. So normally she sleeps in a tent. I don't understand this.
Welcome to a COVID world.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe she can talk about supplier diversity. So yeah, I mean, from a pharmaceutical standpoint, it's one of those things where we're required to do it. We sell to the VA, and because we sell to the VA, they require us to have some small diverse suppliers, not only have a plan in place every year, but also to report out. And I think the goals are anywhere from 5 to 20% of our total spend being with small diverse suppliers. So from that standpoint of view, it's a requirement in all pharmaceuticals. I wouldn't say that it's a main driver, like some other organizations that I know of, or that I've been part of, like at Amgen. It was a great corporate goal and it was pushed from the top down. But it is definitely something that I think when you're in this industry, you're very well aware of, and that it's a requirement. So you try your best as a sourcing person to incorporate small suppliers to ensure that you can meet your goal.
Thank you. So Darren, from a UHG standpoint, think of size and scope. When you think about corporate and social responsibility, what are kind of some of their, or how does UHG look at it? Maybe if there's some things to add to what Dana was saying.
Absolutely. Well, as a company, United serves tens of millions of members, a fair amount of whom are of a diverse background. So part of the rationale for supplier diversity for us is we want a supply chain that represents our members and our customers. a myriad of other reasons why we engage in the practice, but a key one for us is the economic impact driven in the communities that we serve. Our CEO, Dave Wickman, often states that our performance is measured by our impact to society. And supplier diversity is helping us drive significant economic impact in underserved communities. And that economic impact manifests itself in job creation and wage growth and community development. And there's a multiplier effect associated with supplier diversity. The diverse suppliers that we do business with are doing business with other diverse suppliers in support of our business. And the employees of all of these diverse suppliers are spending monies in the communities that they work in, which is helping to fuel community development. And that initial dollar, if you think about it, it's spent multiple times helping to drive job creation throughout the ecosystem. And that job creation is positively impacting social determinants of health and leads to greater health equity in underserved communities, and ultimately helps United Health fulfill on our mission of helping people live healthier lives and helping the health system work better for everyone.
Yeah, great points. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Darren. Sorry. As we move to kind of the understanding supplier diversity, it's a very complex world. When you think of, there's over 10 different classifications. You think of minority, women, veteran businesses. Think of tier 1 and tier 2 spend, whether you're buying directly from a supplier or more indirect. Think of the certifications that are out there, making sure that people gain that visibility and get assistance in trying to drive the visibility to their capability and capacity. And then really, supplier master data. What do you do with all the data? Where do you get it? Do you work it internally or externally? A lot of those just different things create some extreme challenges for different organizations. So Darren, how does UHG manage supplier diversity spend kind of across that large organization? How do you look at it? How do you manage based on the size and scope of United?
Well, our program, focuses on both tier 1 and tier 2 spend. Tier 1 being direct spend with a diverse supplier. In the case of tier 2, it's our pushing opportunities down our supply chain to our direct suppliers to engage with diverse suppliers in support of our business. It's critical for us to have capable and efficient reporting systems that help us gather this information with a level of frequency needed to fully analyze opportunities and to develop strategies on how to more strongly engage diverse suppliers across our businesses. And so we rely on key technology, rely on efficient processes in place to help us better manage our supplier base, help us understand key certification or classifications of our supplier base. So there's a variety of technological needs that we've invested in to help us better manage our program and ultimately to help drive continuous growth in the program as well.
Okay. So Dana, at BioMarin, how does that work within how do you address some of those complexities and challenges, knowing just the expansiveness of supplier diversity and how it works?
Yes. Yeah. So I think, it's one of those things in trying to report to the government, you want to be as accurate as possible, right? And I've seen, and not only at BioMarin, but at other companies that I've been at, it's a very big struggle to have your supplier data and understand and have people self-report and keep their certifications up to date. And it's a struggle that I see across, not only our industries, but other industries. And so what we've done is basically used a thing called Tealbook. It's a technology that basically we have our supplier data, master data. We have our contract and our spend data that we can send to them, and they come back to us with a nice, tidy little report that says, here are, based on the suppliers that you have and the spend that you have with them, the known and validated diverse suppliers. And here are ones that potentially we think are diverse, so that we can just take that number and put it into our reporting, which in comparison to the way it used to be done in pharma, it used to take weeks to months to try to understand your supplier diversity spend. And now that there's this tool out there, it literally has gone from taking months to days just to get this report turned around to be able to accurately report to the government. So having a tool like that in place has just been a complete game changer. For anybody in the pharmaceutical industry who's ever had to submit the reports, they totally understand the difference. And anybody in sourcing who knows, there are these goals and the programs within pharmaceuticals, the ones that are heavily pushed. This really makes life easier. You can go in and find a small diverse supplier for an RFP within seconds, right? So having that insight and knowledge into that information is just, like I said, it's a real game changer for not only us at BioMarin, but I think the entire industry who really leverages that type of technology.
Yeah.
I just want to build on that, Ken, very quickly. I think to your point, Dana, having that technology is critical, not only for folks within your procurement team, folks within your business, but I think it enables the organization to better understand their performance in a much more efficient way, enables the development of goals holistically, as well as maybe for specific classifications. It just better helps you manage your program. And as you think about growing various aspects of your program, it is absolutely critical to have that technology to drive efficiency and effectiveness for those leading the program, as well as those engaging in the supplier diversity efforts.
Yeah. So Mark, as leading software, marketing execution companies for softwares, how do you guys look, or how does Noosh look at supplier diversity?
Well, with the first point that I'd make is, if you look at all the classifications on the right-hand side of the screen and the different goals, is that it's actually pretty complex, right, to manage, because each one of those comes with a certain set of certifications that you have to track for a high degree of efficacy. And as Dana pointed out, there's tools to do that, such as Tealbook. We're a Tealbook partner, in fact. But the key for us is to shift the mindset from we want to report out to helping buyers kind of influence their selection to better adhere to corporate goals earlier in the process, right? So if a enterprise has a policy where they want to include a diverse supplier on every RFP, you need to collect evidence that you're actually doing that. So it's really trying to shift the mindset to pull the data much further forward in buying processes, so that marketers can kind of see it and have those that data influence their decisions. So if you think about the traditional buying stool, right, it's price, quality, and time. But increasingly, we want to think about social responsibility, whether it be supplier diversity or sustainability, kind of as the fourth leg of that stool earlier in the process. So we try to pull that data from Tealbook and then push it all the way forward into the buying process. And I'm going to add one more thing, because we're pretty focused right now on the United States market. Supplier diversity is actually a global issue, and it varies by region, right? So in South Africa or the UK, they have different diversity programs and different supplier classifications that we need to track. So that's the other piece that we start thinking through, is how do I present the different classifications by region, depending upon where our clients are operating in the world. About half of our revenue is from outside the United States. So thinking through it from kind of a global perspective to achieve some of the benefits that we talked about earlier, is like that flywheel effect of using diverse suppliers who are using other diverse suppliers for just broader inclusion overall in the globe. So.
Yeah, very good point on the global aspect of it. A lot of the focus has been domestic, but does represent a lot of different challenges as you open up a global market. Most definitely. Well, thank you for perspective on that. As we look at addressing marketing and operational challenges, really focusing on understanding the challenges. We think about supplier visibility. What are the capabilities, capacities? Are they compliant with contracts and regulatory controls? what staffing and resources do I have to try to leverage, diverse suppliers and go out and find those suppliers? And then do my resources have the skills? Do they have the capacity? A lot of, I think, the nuance is I'm going to use my primary supplier, the good old boy down the street. I've used them for years. They're great. I love them. But we don't get out into the tail spend, and we don't get out into challenging ourselves, Mark, as you pointed out, adding suppliers to an RFP to make sure that I'm getting that visibility to what those diverse suppliers can bring to the table. As we look at, 40% of procurement leaders state that identifying that qualified supplier is their biggest challenge. So how do you get that data into an organization to allow those marketing execution folks and procurement folks to make that decision and have the visibility of the capabilities, the demographics and stuff of those suppliers? So, Dana, as you look at from BioMerian, what are some of the challenges you guys have worked through or maybe are still working through when you kind of thought about that visibility of diverse suppliers, and how do you get that introduced into your space?
Yeah, I mean, again, it goes back to the technology. Without that, it's really hard to really identify and come up with quickly when you're in sourcing, right? You're trying to identify new suppliers that could potentially, work within the marketing space. And it's really, I think, a tough situation because it's not like a IT space, or it's not like a different space where there may be a bunch of small suppliers. Typically, it's a large supplier type of marketing agencies or type of category. So trying to just identify them without them being acquired first is a challenge in itself. And being able to have that technology and tools to do that has been key. And not only that, it's, sourcing really takes on that responsibility. So we're reporting out to the government. So we really have to take it upon ourselves to use whatever tools we have to then identify to the business partners, hey, there are these diverse suppliers. This is why. This is kind of the business case and why we really need to be able to use them and leverage them and what they can bring to our company that maybe, bigger suppliers just can't. So the identification is definitely something that I think a lot of people struggle with. I know, incumbent solutions like Oracle and Coupa and just those types of solutions, there is information, but it's typically stale after a while. And, unfortunately, when we ask suppliers to keep their information up to date, it typically doesn't happen, right? Especially when they have to do it for thousands of customers or how many ever they have, right? And that's a huge burden on them. So it's nice to have a technology that does it for us and does it for them so that we both can come to a happy medium. And I think, again, finding those suppliers is tough enough on, its own. Without the technology, it's really even a harder feat.
Yep. So Darren, as you look at United with thousands of suppliers, multiple different departments around the company that do marketing, and you look at how does United go about kind of creating that transparency, aggregating some of the spend, yet still hitting some of the goals you talked about earlier as far as speed to market and just delivery to the consumer?
Well, I'm going to keep it real. I think one of the key challenges that we see in managing marketing spend with diverse suppliers, or for any category with that matter, is often supplier diversity is just one of the many priorities that the marketing team is working through. And ultimately, key priorities including driving operational and cost efficiencies, which in a number of instances lead to supplier rationalization or very tight management of the supply chain, can negatively impact smaller businesses without a targeted strategy to ensure inclusion of diverse small businesses in the supply chain. I think some of our business partners, in some instances may not have awareness of who the diverse suppliers are in their supply chain. So going back to this theme around technology, having that technology that helps make it easier for them to identify suppliers, ultimately greatly benefits the ability to drive program growth. Having technology that not only identifies who's diverse, but identifies it by category using a variety of levels of taxonomy so that they can zero into the specific type of competency or capability that they need and align that to diverse suppliers, ultimately drives process efficiency and is helping to lead to stronger growth in our program.
Yeah. Thank you. Mark, any other challenges that your customers or your clients have brought to Noosh?
Yeah, well, I think what I'm going to do is pick up on kind of themes that Dana and Darren just kind of mentioned. Is that like finding is part of it, but then getting marketers to use them is a different topic altogether, right? Because as Darren pointed out, there's all kinds of competing priorities, right? There's, you know, and the stat just says it, 76% of marketing leaders felt that they couldn't fully maximize the impact of initiatives while also striving for efficiency. In other words, they kind of want to stick with the vendors they've been using for a while, right? The ones that know the system, know the program. So there is this tension between the goals, right? And we all know it and understand it, that it's there. But I think picking up on what you said, Darren, is like it's the corporate initiative kind of getting alignment. And I think we're talking about that in the next web seminar on how do you drive alignment to get those goals as they flow throughout. Once those goals are there, I mean, I think what's interesting about that from our perspective as a technology provider, that we'll pull data forward so that people can make better decisions, but ultimately the organization, the company needs to decide what those goals are. And we can help in the technology kind of enforce those metrics, enforce compliance to SLAs around, diverse supplier, utilization in RFPs or buying events. We can help all that. But if the rules aren't there, well, it's harder to help, right? So ultimately, from a technology perspective, deploying technology is always a partnership with the client to really understand what their business goals are. And if those are well understood, it's easy to instantiate them in the technology.
Thank you, Mark. Well, I think as we look at this and kind of wrap it up, is I think we've discussed some really good topics today when we look at what is supplier diversity? What are the things that kind of are the drivers in the marketplace? Look at some of the challenges and complexities. We talk about minority and veteran and women-owned businesses and some of the other classifications out there and the challenges of bringing all that together. And certainly from a data standpoint, all three of you made very good points from how do you collect the data, get it out to the right folks, get the right folks looking at it and understanding it, and then take action on what they're seeing from a metric standpoint. So I'd like to thank everybody for attending this first session. Thank you again to Mark, Darren, and Dana, and hope to see you in the next session where we're going to focus on heightening awareness of supplier diversity programs. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.